So this is how the media frames it. But when you actually read the story, you're like, oh, it's a little bit different. But we can frame things too. I like to play that game. Can I play that game with all of you guys? All right, let's play that game. Here's the story from NBC News. A Batman researcher said gay in a talk to students. When asked to censor himself, he quit. Oh, I can't believe it. Is that really what happened? No. The real story, in all honesty, is a guy was trying to explain. He wanted to give a presentation to students on a co-creator of Batman. He wanted to include in the story that the co-creator's son was homosexual. They said, yeah, please don't do that. And he was like, I'm going to, or I'm not going to do the speech. And they're like, okay, then don't do it. And he's like, okay. And that's the story. He didn't just say gay. They were saying, just don't include that. You don't need to. But let's play some framing games. Let me read the story for you. NBC News reports, Mark Tyler Nobleman was supposed to talk to kids about the secret co-creator of Batman, with the aim of inspiring young students in suburban Atlanta's Forsyth County to research and write. Then the school district told him he had to cut a key point from his presentation, that the artist he helped rescue from obscurity had a gay son. Rather than acquiesce, he canceled the last of his talks. Okay. We are long past the point where we should be policing people talking about who they love, Nobleman said in a telephone interview. And that's what I'm hoping will happen in this community. All right, let's just pause for a second and let me ask the obvious question. All right, so if I'm talking about a guy, Dick Cheney, let's talk about Dick Cheney, everybody. Dick Cheney was the vice president of the United States under the George W. Bush administration. He was deeply involved in the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, these invasions, and he was heavily criticized by Democrats in the United States. For what purpose would I include that his daughter is a lesbian? Serious question, guys. For what purpose? If I'm going to talk to you about, let's talk about the war in Iraq and Afghanistan, right? They're talking about Batman. Okay. Let's talk about the secret co-creator of those wars, Dick Cheney. Did you know his daughter's a lesbian? For what purpose would you include that information? Now, more importantly, you want to frame things? Okay. Let's frame things. Let me frame it for you. Mark Tyler Nobleman was supposed to talk to kids about the secret co-creator of Batman. Then the school district politely asked him not to inform the school children that the son of this artist had sex with other men. He refused and instead canceled his talk. That's the framing. That's the game they play. Now, come on. If you frame it that way, people are going to be like, why is he talking to kids about dudes banging each other? Yeah. Now, of course, what they're really saying is that he's gay. But of course, then, if you're talking to school children, they are trying to get you to the point where he explains to minor children what being gay is. What does that have to do with Batman? So good. Man, they wonder why we say groomer. State laws restricting talk of sexual orientation and gender identity in schools have proliferated in recent years. But the clash with Nobleman shows schools may be limiting such discussions, even in states like Georgia that haven't officially banned them. Some proponents of the broader laws, giving parents more control over schools, argue they extend to discussions of sex and gender, even if the statutes don't explicitly cover them. 11 states ban discussions of LGBTQ people in at least some public schools, blah, 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 blah. Oh, they lie about everything. Let me slow down for you. Rebecca Hale, via the AP. These laws, they say don't talk to kids about sex. That's it. Now, some of them are more specific than that, and they're like gender identity and stuff is included. But the general concept behind this is if you are an adult, you should not be going to minor school children and explaining to them fetishes and kink and sexual activities. Because here's the thing. You know what? They're pedophiles. I'm not going to pull punches. I'm not holding back. The people that are promoting this kind of language in these books, many of these Democrats, they are pedophiles. They want to have sex with children. Sorry, that's the truth. Why? I have a friend. He's a lefty. And he said, why are you supporting these don't say gay bills, blah, blah, blah. And I love whenever I say this stuff, I get these leftists who are like, Tim doesn't have any leftist friends, he's lying. Oh, shut up. So stupid. As if nobody knows another person of different political persuasions. But he was like, why are you supporting it? And I was like, dude, adults shouldn't be going to kids and explaining butt plugs. And their response was, it's just sex ed. No, it isn't. The creepy, disgusting disgusting idea that showing kink and fetish porn stuff to children is sex ed is a lie. Here's the truth. Sex ed, what is it supposed to be? All right, kids, your parents have signed the permission slips. They're accepting of you to come into this age-appropriate discussion for you as you enter puberty. Your bodies start changing. There you go. Sex ed. I had sex ed when I was a kid. I was, how old would I have been here? I think I was 10. 10 years old when they did sex ed. 10. Ooh. Parents had to sign a permission slip. It was a Catholic school. And what they did was the boys were brought into a room and they explained you're changing bodies and reproduction. Then the boys left and the girls came in and they explained you're changing bodies and reproduction. At no point in the discussion did any of them talk about proper methods for stimulation. That's not sex ed. That's kink. Something else. What these pedophiles are starting to do is they're trying to conflate sexual gratification with sexual reproduction and then use it as justification under sex ed to start grooming children because they're sickos. You see, here's how it begins. First, a man and a woman, they certainly enjoy each other's company in the biblical sense, if you know what I mean. But the knowledge for which we convey to children in schools when it comes to sex ed is the process of reproduction so the kids can learn where do babies come from. Now, these two adults, your mom and your dad, they may enjoy certain activities as they engage in their pleasurable biblical activities. And that's totally separate from the act of reproduction. That's personal, private, between you. Here's what happens then. We enter the conversation around gay marriage, and they say what two people do in the privacy of their own homes are their own business. Sure, sort of. That doesn't pertain to like doing heroin or meth, right? What two adults do in the privacy of their own home is their own business, unless we're talking about drugs and gambling, and yeah, you get the point. This argument from the left is a statement of principle that doesn't actually apply to anything they really believe. Because poker would be legalized well before gay marriage if the idea was you can do what you want in the privacy of your own home. No. They say it's about who you love. And you know what? I'm for gay marriage from a legal perspective. From a religious perspective, I can certainly understand what Christians are saying. No, this is an Abrahamic institution of our religion, and you can't do it. You can't do it in a church. Like I understand all those arguments, but I do believe legal rights between people is good and acceptable for a variety of reasons, which I won't elaborate on now. I will just move on to the other point. Because two adult men cannot reproduce, they can't. The argument made by the left is the sex these men have is purely gratification. And if you're going to include their activities, you have to explain to children why. Now, you can explain to kids basic sex ed and say the reason mommies and daddies engage in these practices is to make babies. And then they say, but what about LGBTQ couples? They don't engage in this practice for making babies. Now you're going to have to explain to kids that, no, you don't. Sorry, no, you don't. The reason they do this is because these people live in a different world from everyone else. Now, they're staunch Christians. Seamus talks about this, that the purpose of sex is reproduction and you get married and do all that stuff. I'm more liberal than that. I get it. People like to feel good. That's why they eat giant chocolate cheesecakes, even though it's not really nourishing you. It's hurting you, but it tastes good. And people engage in adult activities. Sometimes it does not result in the production of a baby. There are certain things people can do well outside of production of a baby. Then there's the extreme leftist view that all of it is just pure gratification. And in fact, you're racist for having kids, and you're actually making the planet worse because of climate change. So they really don't like the process of making babies. In which case, their whole thing is the only point is it feels good. But in these creepy books they present to children, they depict things that can cause physical bodily harm. One book that we actually have talks about consuming human waste. Inappropriate, dangerous, harmful. It's no surprise. They say be body positive. You're big and morbidly obese and on the verge of death, so what? Be you. I saw a funny tweet. It said, I'm pro-choice for my enemies. And I thought it was hilarious. And I'm like, what do you do? Well, of course, for actual conservatives of principle, they say the baby is not my enemy and the baby is the one who suffers. Totally understand that. But there is a certain political reality to the rights that you have over other people and where the lines are drawn. And right now, the left is adamant that they can destroy the minds of their children, sterilize them, abort them, and gorge themselves to death. And what do? They vote for it. They vote to destroy themselves. The environmental pressure is obvious. It's a natural selection. If conservatives have children and they're more likely to be well-adjusted and successful, and liberals don't have kids and gorge themselves to death, the future is plainly obvious. It's conservative. These people are losing. This guy goes running. This man right here, the face you see, he wants to explain to school children a story about men having sex with each other. For what purpose? Don't ask me. I have no idea. But this is not winning. We're winning because parents are saying no. And that's it. We had those students march out of their school in protest over the school allowing male students to use female bathrooms. Get woke, go broke. I'll leave it there. Next segment is coming up at 6 p.m. on this channel. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you all then.